December 15th deadline to raise the debt ceiling looms, it does not appear that Senate Majority Leader Charles Schumer or Minority Leader Mitch McConnell are anywhere close to a deal.
Well, joining us now to discuss is political analyst Mark Halpern. Mark, so what's happening here on the Hill? We always seem that we end up in this situation at least once every so often, and you're really saying that Mitch McConnell and Schumer, they are just not on the same page on this.
They're not. Good afternoon to you both. You know, these two guys don't have much in common, but they're both not big blinkers. They don't like to give in. And this has turned into more than just kind of a partisan brawl. It's turned into a test of wills. Mitch McConnell would like this done by Democrats only. He says, if you guys want to spend trillions, you be responsible for raising the debt ceiling. Senator Schumer says, no, I'm not exposing my vulnerable incumbents to doing this in a partisan way. So they did have a private meeting before the holidays. They do seem to be trying to come to some sort of accommodation. There's a few scenarios on the table where Democrats do it in a partisan way, but Republicans cooperate. That's one of them. We'll see. But most people in Washington that I've talked to say there are a lot of crises pending, but this isn't one of them, that somehow this will be worked out. And the timetable's not as severe as some news reports suggest. This is really probably a January or maybe even a February deadline, not a December one.
Why is that?
Well, because it's fungible, Bob. As you know, the Treasury Secretary can play with the books and push the deadline back. They can find some loose change under the
as long as there's money in the bank.
Yeah, they can push it back, and their tax receipts can come in. What Treasury secretaries typically do is they'll try to scare the members of Congress into acting to avoid a crisis, and so they'll say, well, this could happen as soon as December 15th. But when they say that, as Secretary Yellen did, what they mean is this isn't really happening December 15th, but we'd like you to try to pretend it is.
So, Mark, who will blink first? You bring up this Schumer versus McConnell, and I just don't think McConnell's going to be able to get those 10 Republicans. But who do you think blinks first?
I don't think he will either. I think he took a lot of heat for blinking a few weeks ago when they kicked the can down the road. I think Senator Schumer will be allowed to do this with Democratic-only votes, but not through the reconciliation process, that complicated Senate procedure, which allows Democrats to do things with 50 votes. I think this will happen without a filibuster. And then Democrats will still provide all the votes, but it will not require the process that Senator Schumer wants to avoid. Again, most people at home fully forgiven for not understanding or caring about how the Senate works. But basically, I think both of them will blink maybe in one eye each. We call that, where I come from, a wink, not a blink.
Okay.
I like that.
And and as long people do know, I think the debt ceiling allows the Treasury to issue bonds to borrow money to pay the bills. But like you said, we do have some in the bank, might be able to keep paying the bills. I did want to ask you about this thing playing out. It's kind of a Republican. I don't want to get too inside the Beltway, but it is kind of interesting. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene issued an ultimatum to Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. Here's what she had to say.
What do we see happening? 13 traitor Republicans help Joe Biden pass his agenda, handing their voting card over to Nancy Pelosi, and nothing happens to them. So here's what we have to have. I think we feel confident that in 22 we're going to take back the House, but we have to take back the House with the Republicans with a plan that are actually going to put it into action instead of talk about it on Fox News.
So that was a shot at Kevin McCarthy. Now, I remember back in the day, I'm not going to say how old I am, but I remember when David Stockman was taken to the woodshed by President Reagan for criticizing Reaganomics, and he came out. So Greene met with McCarthy and then came out afterward, and she had a tweet that said, just got off had a meeting on the phone. Just got off a good call with GOP leader. We spent time talking about solving problems not only in the conference, but for our country. I like what he has planned ahead. Was she called to the woodshed?
Well, I don't know if it was a woodshed or maybe he passed out some hors d'oeuvres, because she seemed to be placated. I don't know that it was and you switch metaphors here. I don't know if it was honey or vinegar. But look, Kevin McCarthy is great at schmoozing with members. He's great at listening to them, hearing them out. Used to be every member of Congress looked in the mirror and they wanted to be the president of the United States. Now they look in, they want to be Joe Manchin. They want to be that member of Congress who's in the majority but has extraordinary influence over what the majority does, even if they're not in leadership. And that's what Joe Manchin's done as a Democrat in a 50-50 Senate. If Republicans take the House, and it's a relatively narrow margin, that'll give a lot of power to lots of individual House members. and Marjorie Taylor Greene
Right.
could be one of them. But as you said, at least in this one interaction, Kevin McCarthy found some way to win her over and get her back on the proverbial Republican reservation.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark, were you surprised that Marjorie kind of backed off? Because she's like a firecracker. She normally just like has her own independent streak.
Right.
Were you surprised that she kind of said, we had a great call with Kevin McCarthy?
We got a lot of crazy things happening in the Republican conference in the House. She was all happy talk about Kevin McCarthy. You have her colleague from Colorado issuing a public apology. This is an odd time, and you're seeing, I think, people maneuvering, thinking about what it could be like to be in the majority in a little bit over a year in the House. House Republicans are going to have to get their act together, and they're showing in two cases that they're willing to bend a little bit. Normally, as you said, these are two members who do not bend. In both cases, they bent at least a little bit.
Yeah, if I'm going to bet that the Republicans are going to win, at least 24 seats, it's going to be such an interesting time, especially if the inflation issue continues to get worse. Mark Halpern, thank you.
As we say in your household, oh mercy.
Or Lord have mercy.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, where real news for real people.